Hello, my name is Rhonda Kitchens. I'm your academic librarian. I'm talking to you today about Google. Google News, maybe not Google Alerts, but definitely Google Advanced and Google Scholar. I'm with the William C. Bonatti Library, Big Bend Community College, and I'm happy to be your librarian. Reach out to me anytime you need to do so. So this will be the content I'm covering today, the basic Google, the Google we all know, and was created to some degree, .com, commercial, for shopping for shoes. You're going to see what happens on some of these as we go through them. Google Advanced. It shows you how to research. It builds you into being a better researcher. And you can go through doing your research and search in a very, very different way. Google Scholar, that's right, it finds mostly scholarly materials. In the past, you may have seen it as this thing that doesn't give you full text, that has little or no value, and today I'm going to show you how to use our link, the William C. Bonatti Library link, to find full text. And finally, just to throw you some extras, Semantic Scholar and Wolfram Alpha, two very different things that do very special things, and you may not know about them. I'm going to start with just letting you know the internet is full of primary and secondary sources. Now, what are those? Primary sources. First-hand accounts. It takes time in the period of the event. Yes, Twitter often very much fills this place. Diaries, letters, oral histories. The Library of Congress, loc.gov, archives.gov really fill this area. You can find posters and people marching and doing all these different types of things in history in their original form. Government records, property records, and yes, some newspaper articles. The ones that happened at the time of the event are also primary sources. The newspaper articles that are secondary sources use primary sources, interviews, letters, all these types of different things, and it puts an analysis, interpretation, synthesis, and evaluation on it. And sometimes it will have a variety of these different things all into this one piece. A lot of nonfiction books are secondary sources, for instance. I just also want you to know about keywords, and we're also going to talk about evaluation, because after all, Google launches us out into this broad, big world, and this world does not have a controlled vocabulary. If you're looking for voting rights, it might be election, it may be other things, electoral. There's so many other words and ideas and phrases for this thing. So when you're going into Google, you can actually use Google to find these, but you need to locate and identify other words you can also search to find the information that meets the needs of not just your thesis question, but also of your professor and how the assignment is written. Keywords. That's right. From your research question, let's take in some keywords. Bring out those important words. Find synonyms and antonyms for your words. Those two will help you research your piece. Find alternate tenses and spellings. Resist, resistance, resistors. In the case of the databases, you can often use a truncation marker, which is an asterisk, to help you find all of those pieces. Also, spell out and use the acronyms. So in the case of the ACA, use ACA. Also, in a search, try Affordable Care Act. Also in a search, because this Google and language changes constantly, and there is sort of a slang term for what the ACA and Affordable Care Act is, would also be Obamacare. And in that case, you might want to spell it together and as two words. So make sure that you look at your word and see the different ways it may appear in the different areas of research that it may show up in. And use keywords and subjects found in your search. You find a person who's famous for working on that thing, use that person's name also in your search. Use your research to do better research. And finally, before we launch into that world, let's look at evaluation. We're looking here at the CRAP test, just basic critical thinking. Why, what, who, when, where, and SIFT. Here I would like you to think of research as going fishing. Alright, so you may catch 100 fish. There's going to be rules and ideas that allow you to keep one over another. It could be a size, a thing. It could be a species that you can't catch that time of year. You need to put it back. Or you may not particularly care for this fish as an edible fish over another one. But you need to know what those are. And when you're going out and finding 100 pieces of research, you don't take the first 3 pages that come up. Or do you know what most people do? They don't get past the first page in Google. Seriously, The number is like 94%. And I found that in Pew Research if you want to do a paper or follow up on that. That's right, I made a claim and I gave you a way to trace the claim back and see the original context. This is the SIFT method. Okay, so let's go back over here. Crap test. We're concerned about currency. Is it new enough? Is it old enough? Is it based on what you're working on? If you're working on something legal, you'd like to probably know all sorts of thoughts on it. But if you're working on something in medicine, the past 3 to 5 years may be good enough for your surgery. So you need to make sure the currency is correct. A lot of ways you can identify what time period your pieces come from. Claims and evidence we sort of talked about, we'll talk more about. Rubric, that's right. When you're doing your research, make sure your research meets the needs of your rubric. That is your assignment. If it says it wants a quantitative scholarly article, please find that. If you don't know what it is, ask a librarian. We love talking about that all day. Relevance, does it actually meet the needs of your research question, or it just met a couple of keywords you used? Does it have references? Are they up to date? Do they actually support the claims made in the piece? Are they in context? Are they old? Are they from places that you would not personally use yourself and do not trust? Have you done that kind of research on the references? That's right. Does this person have authority? Do they have any credentials, academic credentials, or they belong to certain organizations or places, or develop some sort of track record or some sort of thing that you can find that supports their credibility? And also, are they accountable for what they've written? You might find somebody who's written some, like a puff piece versus someone who's written a major piece on solving COVID issues. That person has a great deal of accountability and might take and show and have a greater level of transparency and research. And also the purpose. We'll fly over here. Purpose. See, we're looking at SIFT. SIFT is very concerned about your first feeling about a piece. Like if it hits you with a wall of emotion and you feel some things, that may not be research of the quality you may need. That may be an emotional piece, a puff piece. It could be a piece of conspiracy theory or some misinformation created to draw you in. Think about it. Pause and ask yourself. Investigate the source. That's not like looking for authority and accountability, but this goes to the source. Like, what is it in? Is it in the New York Times? Is it in the Boston Globe? Is it in the Atlantic Journal and Constitution? Where is it? And who is this entity, this source? And really, why don't you set yourself up for finding the trusted sources to begin with? That is an option. Not just going out there, but hey, what does the New York Times have? What does PBS have? And some other sources that you might find to be trustworthy through your research. And trace the claims. If somebody says something happened and they're making all these claims about a medicine, an idea, a figure, try to find those quotes. Where did they come from? Trace that media back. In a way, this piece is the CRAP test has us looking at the research and judging it in a way about itself and the internal workings and the things we could see. SIFT takes us to the next level. Like, we're true crime people and we're working on finding out, like, was this retracted? Does this person have any scandal? Did this article go through a bunch of letters to the editor that pulled out that the math and other things were wrong? That's right. You also need to know what happened to your information once it was put out there. It's very important. So this is the complete package of valuing resources. There's a lot more details. And you know what? You can always ask your librarian, like, is this a good source? Should I use this? That's actually not an unusual ask a librarian question. Someone will have something go, does this meet the needs of the rubric or what my professor is looking for? And if it's not, we can help redirect you to something that will get you full points for your assignment and meet the needs of your rubric and your assignment. So two of the things, and I'll show these to you, that will help you, is the interactive media bias chart. This actually covers podcasts now. And one of my favorite ones is on there, and I didn't realize how far over on one side it was. That was interesting. And the media bias fact check, which is really, really ugly. And you're about to see what kind of shoes I shop for, because that's one of the things Google does well, by the way. But It's been around since 2015. It's put together by an editor, and it's appalling in appearance, but quality in its content. But I do have to say, oh, it's just not attractive. Now, using this topic, I'm going to be doing a couple of demos, and I'm going to do voting rights. And finally, and this is very important, if you have questions, I hope you can tell. You can ask your librarian. You can ask me, anyone in the library. You can come in. You could go to Ask a Librarian on the side of our website. We'll be glad to help you. And when we're not there, we have librarians across the world ready to help you. That's right. You could ask somebody at 2 a.m. in the morning for help, and it may be somebody in Australia or something like that to answer your question. So I always check in the morning to see that it was answered okay, and I'll follow up with you. But we have a really good support package here at the library. So hey, go ahead and use us. So let me keep talking to you about this Google thing and how to improve your Google, because I do believe it is a verb at this point. So you can tell immediately which media bias checker this is. It was the second one, media bias fact checker. In general, this is the type of way you would analyze and evaluate your website. Does it have a lot of ads on it? And this does. And you can see that I do like to have a fun coat and things of that nature. Last time there were some shoes, so when I show this, it's always fun and amusing. So you go up here to the search and you put in the name of the thing you're looking at. You can also look at things that are least biased and things like that. And instead of just randomly going out there, why don't you use the source that already has the least bias? Keep yourself in between the markers. So I did a search for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and you do the search there, and it lets me know these media sources have a moderate liberal bias. They often publish factual information, and it talks about this and other left-center sources. And overall, it's rated pretty high. It's not the highest, but it's high. And you have access to their detailed report, the history of the paper, and things of that nature, including the ownership. You could actually do, if you use the SIFT method, do a research on the ownership as well as the paper, because this is not the only place that has it, but this will kind of give you a quick idea about what you're dealing with. Now let's go to the one that's a little bit more elaborate, and it will not have pictures of shoes I've been shopping with. Did I mention Google is really good with that? I'm sure you've seen it in your own life. And if only it did that with research. But it does not. This is going to be something you can search for the paper, and you can look at podcast, TV, and other things, and website and articles as well. And you can check those out here. Just type it in the search, and it's going to appear over here. I'm trying to move it. There's going to be information on this side, original fact reporting, down to inaccurate. So it's going to have the top part, which is going to have the left to the right skew. And I'm trying to move this up, guys. Sorry. Up, you see the top bar. And over here, the most reliable for news, but not analysis or opinion. And you'll see nothing's like super up here in the high green part. Well, there is something. The Washington Post. How do you like that? And again, if you determine this is the higher quality of information, you might want to start with something like that. And you'll see the others kind of here and there. You'll see this over here, extreme left, Jimmy Dore, I think, or Dore, and Alex Jones. And you can see they're not really up here in this beautiful green square of reliability for news and analysis and facts. So this green place would be the more ideal pieces for you to use. You can see the ones that are more national and well known, and these little dots are little things from everywhere. What is this? This is CNN. This is the AP. It's a news service. This is something else. And here we go. So let's go over here, and I'm going to type in Atlanta, sorry, Journal, and you'll see the Atlanta Journal-Constitution falls here. And it's kind of in the zone, but it's a little bit under with some reliability issues or extremism, but it's really pretty moderately placed. And so this kind of gives us a way of examining that. And we looked at the other one, so we have some different things to compare. So between these two things, you should be able to figure out to some degree, and just basic Google searching, which one is the most credible, the most reliable, the one that contains the least amount of bias, which is almost in a little bit of everything, and the most facts in use in reporting. Very important pieces. Here you may ask is how important is all of that? Well, I want to let you know sometimes a professor reads your paper backwards. And when they see things that have a higher quality rating in terms of information and fact and analysis, your paper will be considered to be of a higher merit in many cases. So make sure you understand the history of the sources that you use. So I'm going to use voting rights. As you can see, as I start typing, it does start giving me some ideas. If I haven't narrowed down my topic, I might look at some of those, the law and legislation parts or whatever. We will see that Google changes a lot. Like right now we have see results about suffrage. That's another way to approach voting rights. And of course we have the Voting Rights Act of 1965. There's currently some top stories going on, and that's placed at the top. I don't have a lot of ads at the top of this one right now. For some topics you'll be full of ads because Google's purpose is commerce in general. That's the .com part. So this piece, people also ask, it's been showing up, I don't know, maybe for a year. I'm not really sure. It's the newer part of things that show up in Google from time to time. I consider this sort of a danger zone. It goes to things like Quora and some places where random people answer random questions. And when you're doing research, that's really not the approach you want to take unless you're writing about random people answering random questions about your topic. So when you go through your research results, a lot of times the URL is going to give you a lot of information about who these people are. This is going to be the American Civil Liberties Union. It's a .org. It's an organization. If you go in to use that, I would go in and look at the about, the mission, and understand who they are and what their bias may or may not be and what they're trying to accomplish. This is really important for you to understand the purpose of the information you're using. CNN, if you go into it, you'll see that it is a news station. It will talk about their political purpose. You can also search it in the media bias. This, I didn't immediately know that it was the League of Women Voters, and this is how I approach things when I don't understand what they are. I go into the page and I look for about us, about, and it's usually at the top or the bottom. I'm just going to go to the bottom because you're going to have to find information to cite and document these items. One of the things you want to make sure is your websites do have the complete information so you can cite it. So let's see if I can move my page down. You'll see here if something doesn't have an author, your author will be the League of Women Voters. And you'll look for that copyright statement or that about statement, and that's going to help you get through who this is and whether or not they work for your research. So I'm going to go over here. Also, very niftily, people also search for. In this place, hey, why don't you steal some of these ideas? No, it's not calling stealing. It is repurpose some of these pieces in your research because you can't write about voting rights probably in your lifetime. So a 5-page paper needs to be about voting rights, 1965, the influence of President Lyndon Johnson or something like that. So you can take some of these ideas and break it down. A .gov is a federal government document, a federal United States government, and those often will have primary sources and original pieces. The BrennanCenter.org is an organization. I would look at it, the about.com and other things to see what they do. Voting Rights Project. This is going to be a committee of lawyers, a .org. To figure out who and what they are, I would go into their about situation. I might also Google them because, for instance, there's some medical groups that sound good, but once you see what they do, they are not. So you need to be aware of how these organizations, what they say they do, and then what they really do. Reuters is like AP. It's a news organization. You'll see some of their articles repeated a lot of times and are rewritten in part by local newspapers, and they will attribute their information to Reuters or AP or something of that nature. Related searches, these again are a rich place for you to look. Now, see where we've come? Most people don't even get to the second page, the third page, the sixth page. Did you know there were 6 pages? The ads started popping up about here. I just went into 6. Divided we fall to .com. And an ad, so I'm just go away. VoteTexas.gov, know your rights. That's going to be federal. That's going to be Texas. And I'd read the about to figure out what that's about. Missouri, Scientific America. We must fight restrictions on voting rights. That's going to be a scientific journal, of course. And if you go there, you can find the about to find out what this magazine covers. This is a .org, an organization, and govinfo.gov. That's going to be a government. It looks like it has some statutes, law, and legislation. Ballotpedia.org, HRC, etc., and then we go to an ads section. So all of these people may or may not have something that will help you. We're like on page 6. Remember, most of the people in your class did not get past the first page, and there's still many things that are interesting. I think this one, the Scientific American, might be interesting. But above that, there's some other things that are happening on this Google page as you're just looking at that first page. There's the news page. I know most of you know the image page, but there's the news page. And there's a tool over here that makes it really very useful. You know how when you hear something that happens, you go to Twitter immediately? If you go to Google All, you usually don't get the current news. But if you go to the news in past hour, or just news and put in the top if it's really clear, you'll find things here. You can see the voting right bill situation is ongoing. It's covered by these different places. And also when you're here, it's not all American newspapers. There are newspapers from across the world in some cases. And that point of view from the outside of American politics may have value to you as well. So that is how you would use this. If you need something immediate, you could also do a custom range and find out about a topic and do comparisons. There's archives and other things. Images you probably know about very well, and you may have used these in a way that would make the the person who has a copyright very upset. So how do you get around that? Look over here, tools, user rights, Creative Commons licenses. A lot of these give you the right to use and reuse with or without attribution. So when you see things from Commons, Wikimedia, Pixabay, or some unsplash.com, those are probably genuinely have a license thing. If you go to Flickr, the pages are very specific and they will let you know what they expect if you use their image. Some rights are reserved, and you can click through here and it will let you know what you can and cannot do with this image. Next, we're going to look at videos. It may be that when you do your research you go to youtube.com, but guess what? There are more places that hold videos than YouTube. Not all videos are there. So you'll see here, you'll find some on different organizations. There's Vimeo, there's the NAACP, and other persons in this search list that you might have missed if you had just went to YouTube. Under tools, there's this other very interesting thing. Suppose you're going to add a video to a presentation, but you want it to be really short. You can pick durations and only find 4-minute videos. You can also do any time. Things have been loaded in the past year, past week, or 24 hours. Quality and other things. That might be something you did not know before, but it's available to you on Google. This tool section often changes, so keep an eye on it and see how it might be useful for you in different situations. So that covers how Google works in those different ways with the different toolboxes, understand the bias of most people never getting past the first page, understanding how to read through the search results to try to figure out things you might need to be able to go through it rapidly. But I want to show you something else. Google Advanced Search. It's different times. It's been in this drop-down box, but it moves around. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it's a link under the box. Right now, I can't even tell you where it is, but this is a place that exists. So let me put search, and I need to change it over to all because it's finding different people who've done videos on it. Yes, because it is a thing. So Google Advanced Search looks like this. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. But to me, as a librarian, it's almost like research training wheels. So you want to find pages with these words. Hey, is it a phrase? Put it in quotes. Hey, does this word have other synonyms or things like this, like COVID-19 or coronavirus? Put an or between it. You want to get rid of something? Put a negative in front of it. When I do my research, I usually do negative Pinterest because I do not even understand why it comes up in some of my really critical intellectual searches, which are not about shoes. So down for any language, you could pick your language, of course, but this is the part that I use the most. .gov, .edu, or .org. When I'm trying to find different types of information, I will use those to find things that are a little bit higher in quality, credible, or meet other types of standards. So that is a place that you could search inside. Let's go voting rights. And let me put in a quote so it searches it together, but it has been pretty reliable in that regard. I'm going to put a .edu. I didn't see any of those in my search that I did before. And you could do any format. I will tell you that one of the things I use most is a PDF. PDF helps me find white papers, presentations, slideshows, and things of that nature. There's also some other slideshows and file types that you can search. You can search for spreadsheets even. When you need it, you'll probably know about it, but I'm going to go for the advanced search. I'm going to bring this up because, yes, you can use different types of search strategy in Google. And this is how that looks when you're searching for a phrase inside a domain. I could actually put the name of a domain. If you can't find something, say bigbend.edu, you could put academic calendar site : bigbend.edu to search inside our own website to find things. And yes, I've done that sometimes. So here we have top stories, and it comes from a university. I usually avoid this again because it goes to Quora and other people answering questions. And this talks about this particular library has a web archive of documents. Colorado Education, Wisconsin, King's Institute, Cornell is talking about specific law or legislation. Florida Bar State professors from testifying in voting rights. That's an interesting parts, and voting rights projects that are in different colleges. So still, this is a really big piece, but I could put law, legislation, different people's names, different ethnic groups, areas, types, discrimination, and I could come up with some better documents, events, or things that would be really useful for me. And this, if you should see, breaks me out of the place where I was only finding government documents and organizations. Now I'm looking at different documents from other places, including Yale and other areas. And that's right. Those would look beautiful in my works cited or my bibliography or references. So that is one of the great and beautiful things about using Google Advanced. It trains you up on how to do the search strategy, even for Google, and helps you look inside of things in areas or entire websites that you may never have thought of using before. So I'm going to show you now how to get into Google Scholar and find full text. Guess what? I have set up a link for you. This is the library website. I'm going to go to databases A to Z, and I'm going to go to Google Scholar under G, and I have here a little video. I think it's 3 minutes long. So if you forget this and you don't want to go through this 30-minute piece, go right here and see that little short video. Okay, so I'm going to go to Google Scholar. So this is what I did. I set it up. Do you see it up here? I set this up with the institution code that is us. Now, this is not going to be just a plain search. See, voting rights in the United States. First of all, it's going to illuminate things on the right-hand side that are available full text. And when we have it full text, and you also see the .edus and orgs that have things as well, so it helps you find other sources. Generally speaking, these will be scholarly articles, but you always need to go through it. I do have a video on that, and I'm also glad to talk to you about it if you'd like that. This will take you back into our library catalog and sort you out to find it in full text. So if you've ever used before the Google Scholar and didn't use it again because it didn't have what you needed, full text, this is going to be really great for you. See, it's available here. I'm in Academic Search Premier, and look, it gives me all these different rich pieces that I can use. When I say rich pieces, I mean keywords. So, also over here, at one time people looked down on Google Scholar because it didn't seem to be up to date to them, but guess what? It's ever changing, and I believe I've seen this. While this doesn't have all the full text available to you, it's aware of it. So some of these searches are really quite good. If you need to have the past 5 years or whatever, or just since 2020, you can change that up. Now, when you go to here, this will go to a paywall. When you go to here, that's usually going to be free full text. I'm not sure we're going to be on every page, but you're looking for BBCC full text. And here's related searches. Have you not narrowed down your topic yet? The impact of voting rights. Actually, these related searches look a lot more interesting in terms of helping you narrowing down than the broader Google search. But you have all these things where you could just go right in, and it has the search laid out for you. While there are some things that have a paywall, there are things to the right hand side that do not. And you'll see here, Big Ben. And this is going to resolve, I'd say, about 85% of the time. If it doesn't, guess what? Ask us to find you full text. If you ever hit the paywall, ask you $41, $100 for an article you really need. Ask your librarians to track that down for you. We would be glad to do so. Now, I'm going to show you this one thing which is very valuable, especially if you're working on your doctorate degree, which mostly all of you should be. Seriously. But meantime, you can create an alert. Suppose I am doing a paper on this, and I know I'm doing it. It's going to be due at the end of the semester, and I can create an alert so it'll send me articles on that topic as they are published inside, or indexed inside of Google Scholar, which is going to be awesome for me. So you can set search alerts, but make sure that you're really ready to take all of those in. Now, let's go up here to this part. Case law, profile, metrics. See this metrics part? Remember how we were talking about whether or not we could determine if something had value or was trusted, and we're just thrown into research at first. We have no idea. Under the metrics section, when you're looking for journals like scholarly articles, which media bias and the other piece do not cover, many places don't, Google Scholar has a section that does give you some idea about where things are rated in terms of the other. Suppose, let's see, let's type in a publication, epidemiology. I can't type. Oh, I did type it well. These are the top ones. It lists them in order. This is the one that's been cited the most, used the most, has the highest regard in the profession. There's a lot of different indexes. If you look at these, they'll kind of explain it. But these are the ones you could say that have the best. You could go into our library catalog and search for publications and just search in those. That's right. If you want a trusted source, why don't you start with a trusted source? It's just an idea. And frankly, I do often do that because these will look awesome in what? Your bibliography references or works cited, whatever format that might be. So I hope this was really helpful to you. I'm always able and willing and love to sit down and talk to you about building great Google searches and going at topics or anything you need to do. And I know I went through this really, really fast, but I'm glad you hung in here. And if you ever need help, always ask your librarian.